Woden's Day. Hello. This chart is from the Bank of England. England swings like a pendulum do. Broad money and lending growth since 1945. Now in blue it's the M4. That's all sorts of different types of money. The broadest type of money that the Bank of England wants to talk about here. And they have another thing called M4 lending. M4 lending is the broadest type of lending that the Bank of England wants to talk about. Now, what's interesting here, we start off with only the blue one, the amount of money that's out there, owned by people, as it were. And the red line kicks in afterwards, which is in early 60s, which is a record of the lending. Now, we can imagine, we could have guessed that the two lines would run together, but it's interesting to see them run together, that the lending puts the money out there so it can be deposited in banks, and that's it. The lending puts the money out there so it can be put in banks, and that's what you've got. The red is the lending and the blue is the put in banks. So it's quite instructive if you follow it from 1955 down there, the blue, and we can imagine that the red will be following, or at least going along with, from 55 all the way to after 85, near 90, there's a ramping up, because these are percentage changes year over year, percentage changes year over year, increases when they're above zero, obviously. So the increases year on year are getting bigger and bigger and bigger in the United Kingdom from 1955 all the way to 1990. More money is being lent, more money is staying in various bank accounts in various ways. And there's a great spike up in 1974-ish. Now, I don't know what that is. A bit more digging, I'm sure I could find out, but so I won't go into it. But so we've got that huge long ramp up period to 1990. Then there was a recession in 1991, which presumably was the reasoning for that pulling down of both lines down to a mere increase of 5%. At its greatest, that lending, the red one, where it says M4 lending, was up to 35% year on year. But looking across, most of that was between 15 to 20% when it was up between in the 70s and 80s. That's an awful lot of increase in lending, an increase in the amount of money in bank accounts. So she comes down in 1991, goes back up to about 10% and has been flat at 10% from 1992 until the Great Recession crash. But it's all quite instructive. Sometimes the red goes up and the blue goes down, sometimes the blue goes down and the red goes up, but generally they run together. So the Bank of England have put this chart together with all the words that go round it to talk about quantitative easing, which are the two blue vertical lines there. So you've got QE1 and QE2 from the Bank of England trying to show in the whole of this PDF how QE increases the blue line. And far as I can read through it, it's an awful lot of... I was wearing my yellow shirt yesterday when the sun came up. So if I wear my yellow shirt today, I'll make the sun come up, sort of thing. But you can't deny that right at the end, and this is almost desperate stuff, but right at the end, there's a hook down in lending. You can see right at the end there, far right, there's a hook down in lending, but there's a push up in the amount of money in bank accounts. And this is what they're patting themselves on the back for. Lending is at zero, but year over year increase, but bank account deposits are at 5% year over year increase. So they're really applauding themselves for QE 1 and 2 working. You can read the whole PDF if you're that way inclined. I doubt if you are. Right, let's move on. Europe. This is a chart from the Wall Street Journal, and it just is simple and easy. It's change since 2007 in inflation-adjusted GDP. So you've got your inflation adjustment in there. Greece, horrible, disgusting, disgraceful, frightening, great fall, down below everybody else. But also very bad falls, under 5% fall from 2007, even through the projected forecast for 2013 for Ireland, Spain, Portugal and Italy. And the main point here, obviously, is if you're in a lot of debt, you need growth to get out of it. Yeah. And there's lack of growth for Ireland, Spain, Portugal and Italy, which will make their debts not unpayable, but much harder to pay. Right. Mish has done a good job this week on unemployment. He's been working on it on and off for a couple of weeks now, and he's done a long article about US unemployment. And I'll read a couple of paragraphs from it to give you an idea what his line of thinking. Wilkinson, who's been, let's say, helping him on it, but Mish is quoting him, notes that if the participation rate rises a mere 0.5 percentage point, employers would need to add 181,000 jobs per month, that is, to prompt the Fed to take away the punch bowl at the end of 2015. You know, I'm always putting up the participation rate. I did a couple of days ago, and it's really down. If it got back or started heading back to normal and went up 0.5 percentage point, that would mean for the Fed to start thinking of taking away the zero interest rate policy in 2015, the economy has to put on 181,000 jobs a month every single month. It's not going to happen, and we'll get into other things. If the participation rate were to rise to 65.8, the average reading since 2000, so since 2000, it's not the old average, it would take a whopping 284,000 jobs per month. A table I posted in 2009 will show why 180,000, even the smaller number, is not in the cards. So Mish goes with a conclusion at the end of this, and it's a long article, and there's a lot of facty stuff in it. This normalization exercise, which is reversion to the mean demographic adjusted trend line, shows how small upward changes in the participation rate in age group 25 to 54, and that's the main bulk of the participation of the working population 25 to 54 alone, will make it near impossible for Bernanke to hit the Fed's unemployment target by 2015. Not, if it happened for Bernanke, but he's not betting on it, and he's not even saying he's going to take the punch bowl away even if he does hit it. The above projections do not even factor in the possibility, I think near certainty, of a recession in the meantime. In other words, between now and 2015 or whenever the numbers hit, there'll probably be a recession. And if you get a recession and the numbers go negative, that means the next lot of numbers have to be even more positive. But the main drive of the Mish article is that the way unemployment rates are calculated in the United States, if the unemployment rate keeps improving, in other words, the job situations are getting better, more people will come from their position of being outside the books back onto the books of being unemployed. They're not counted at the moment because they're not looking for work. If the economy improves, they will come back and look for work. And as they come back and look for work, you'll need more of, that'll make the unemployment more, and you'll need more jobs to make up for it. And if you get more jobs, more will come off the sidelines. There are a lot of people that have just fallen out of the numbers in the United States. So it's just highly unlikely, bordering on the impossible, that zero interest rate policy and quantitative easing and all the other Fed tricks will be taken off in 2015, probably not till 2018 as far as we can see. And 2018 is far enough away not to think any further. Right, let's finish with this is from the Arthur blog that I was quoting from yesterday. It's not a totally up-to-date chart, and it's a bit straggly, but it puts over what Arthur wants to put over. And it is important always to remember when it comes to the problems what we've got at the moment in most all countries of the OECD. Different ones, different amounts, but basically this is the picture. The black line down at the bottom sticks up to its highest in the Second World War. Now these are different measures of measuring indebtedness. You've got public indebtedness, that's the public in general, government debt, at its highest after the Second World War. This isn't quite up to date, it's come up a bit more since then. But that's the public debt in black. And in red, it's the private debt, which was high in the 30s, came down, and in a relationship, it was lower than the government debt, the public debt, at the end of the war, and since has just risen and risen and risen and risen and risen. The drive of this, fiscal cliffs, all that absolute not looking in the right direction, mess about, is bollocks. The problem is not down there in the black line. The problem is up there in the red line. It's the private debt that's the problem and not the public debt. Thems is looking in all the wrong places and getting themselves dreadfully worked up about it. It is much to do about absolutely nothing. The problem is up there with the private debt. If you're going to answer the right question, you've got to ask the right question. And they're not. They're looking in completely the wrong place. Bye.